I'm back. Dr. Tim de Maayer may be back at work at the Rahima Moosa Hospital, but the very real problems he spoke of in his open letter last month are nowhere near a resolution. He penned an open letter detailing the poor conditions at the hospital and how it contributes to the deaths of children. Dr. de Maayer was placed on precautionary suspension yesterday, a decision that was met with widespread outrage. Gauteng Health MEC, Dr. Nomathemba Mokheti, met with both parties, and Dr. de Maayer is now back at work. The South African Medical Association added its voice to a chorus of condemnation, saying that Dr. de Maayer's suspension was a concerted campaign to muzzle critics of provincial health departments. We're joined now by Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa, SAMA chairperson. Thank you very much, Dr. Mzukwa, for your participation tonight. Earlier, we also spoke to Dr. Aslam Dasu, who was highly critical of those officials who made the decision to suspend Dr. Tim de Maayer. We know he is back at work. That, however, doesn't remove the fact that a knee-jerk reaction led to his suspension and ultimately what looked like a muzzling of criticism. What did you make of how the Gauteng Health Department handled the whole situation?
Good afternoon or good evening to you, Anli, and your viewers. We welcome, the lifting of the suspension by the Department of Health, but we are left with questions. The question is, why in the first place was the doctor suspended? But secondly, what was the intention? Do you want to muzzle, whistleblowers who are out there telling the nation of what is happening? Let me remind the South Africans that the primary duty of a doctor is to protect the patients. That is what we do, and our advocacy is for the patients. So if anything between us and the patient, we do not tolerate. So we encourage all the doctors actually to speak out, because you must remember doctors cannot strike. Doctors, don't fall under, these normal labor conditions because of the Labor Relations Act and that we are essential workers. So if we can't speak out, what else then can we do?
As SAMA and as a doctor, can you talk to us about the conditions at Rahima Moosa that Dr. de Maayer spoke of in his open letter? Have you witnessed those conditions for yourself, and do you know Dr. de Maayer?
I know Tim, and I know the hospital that you are talking about. And not only that, there's been wide reports about the hospital, of patients lying down on the floor, and patients not being, having proper resources, and the shortages of staff and all those things. I mean, those are not issues that are only confined to that hospital. It is something that is happening all over the country. I mean, you've heard recently the minister admitting that there's a dire shortage of doctors in the country. And all they can do is to admit, but there are no further steps to address those issues. But all they do is the energy that they show, energy that they have, to shoot the messenger instead of addressing the issues. So we've been always saying that in the hospitals, the public must know that they are on their own, because this government is not prepared to be dealing with the issues on the ground. This government has broken machineries, no proper issues. You remember even with the issue of the PPEs, whilst we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with such things when there was nothing to protect healthcare workers, including patients themselves. So doctors must speak up when there are issues on the ground.
This open letter from Dr. de Maayer came, it was an outcry. It was an absolute cry for help. And you can see that in the phrasing as well. And other doctors have attested to the same, saying that the conditions are so horrific that the doctors have no choice but to expose them. And unfortunately, we've seen the Gauteng Health Department try and lay the blame for overburdening of the system squarely at the door of foreign nationals. However, Dr. de Maayer refuted that rather eloquently in his open letter. What would your message be to the Gauteng Health Department in terms of that claim, that only foreign nationals are to blame for this problem?
I think foreign nationals are used as a scapegoat. We know we have, as the South African Medical Association, we have made a suggestion to government to say they must go to SADC and all the countries that have their foreign nationals in the country, to deal with the issues on how to deal with foreign nationals that are coming into the country, whether there should be some form of funding that comes to South Africa to accommodate such things. But to keep saying the same thing and you're not coming up with a suggestion is really amazing. What is happening in other provinces? Are they also having a problem of foreign nationals? No, it is the inefficiency of government that has put the Gauteng Department of Health where it is and the whole country. It is a poor leadership that has caused us to be where we are in all the provinces. I want to be clear about that.
Let's talk about the suspension of Dr. Maayer, although it has been lifted and he is back at work. When I was speaking to Dr. Aslam Dasu from the Progressive Health Forum a little bit earlier, he said that he would like to see the issue taken further and that those officials responsible for Dr. Maayer's suspension should be taken on disciplinary hearing. Would you be pursuing the same kind of action?
Yes, I would support it 100%. Because you're taking a clinician out of his clinical work. I mean, these are professionals who are doing their work, dedicated to patients, and there's a shortage of them. If you now take them out of their work, you suspend them, for petty reasons like this. I mean, we think that there should be accountability. It's a pity that we know in South Africa there is no accountability. No one will be held accountable for this act. We believe that that there should be something to protect patients when decisions that don't make sense like this one are being taken by officials.
With patients' care foremost in mind, how do we improve conditions at Rahima Moosa? Because laying the blame at poor leadership and bad systemic support for medical health facilities, that's one thing to say that's the problem. But how do we fix it?
It will take the provincial leadership to go and meet the stakeholders, in those hospitals, including Rahima Moosa Hospital. They need to go down to the clinicians and listen to the cries of the clinicians, and not only listen but implement, the things that are being suggested by the clinicians, because they are at the front line, of this whole thing. They need to be heard, but on top of that, there need to be action. The reason why Tim had to write that article is because even though clinicians are highlighting issues that are troubling them on the ground, there is no one who's implementing those things. But, we've got to have a listening ear, but we've got to use our hands on the ground to do what is being suggested by clinicians who are dealing with these issues on a daily basis.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. That was SAMA chairperson, Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa.